Hello and welcome back to TheSimplyCa. My name is Alana, and on this channel you are going to find both yoga videos as well as human design and life success coaching videos. If you enjoy this content, go ahead and click on that subscribe button as well as the notification bell to be notified every single time I post a new video. Today in the Human Design series, we are going to finally get to the authorities. And the authorities are the unique way that your energy best makes decisions. Some of these decisions and some of these authorities work really quickly, and other authorities take a little bit longer to kick in. So as we go through these authorities, don't worry if these decisions are quick, spur-of-the-moment decisions. That's okay. You don't need to wait a long period of time for those small day-to-day decisions, but these are really for those bigger life decisions. Using your authority will help you make the right decisions for you and the best utilization of your energy. So if you're excited for all of this, stick around and let's get into the authorities. We're going to talk about the authorities in order of strength. Now, depending on how much definition you have in your human design chart, you might actually have multiple centers that indicate which authority you are defined. However, there is a single strongest authority, and when you pull up your human design chart, you're going to be able to see that in the little description piece on the sidebar. I use mybodygraph.com, and the sidebar is on the right hand side when you're looking at the My Body Graph section, and it'll indicate what your authority is. So the first and strongest authority is the emotional authority. And depending on the definition around the solar plexus, the emotional authority can take on a different flavor based off of the gates that are coming off of that solar plexus. So don't worry too much about that. And as you get used to your own emotional authority, if you have that as your authority, you're going to notice what sort of a wave you have, what flavor it has, or you can get a human design reading. Contact information is in the description box below. So the way to work with an emotional authority is to allow yourself time to ride that emotional wave. And as you get used to your emotional wave, you're gonna notice if you're saying yes at a peak or at a valley, or if you haven't quite come to that neutral location. So really with that emotional authority, what you're looking to do is make sure that you are choosing your yeses and your nos, what you're actioning, what you're forwarding, when you are neutral in your emotions. And you can think about that around using how do I feel about this? And it's really important to take time. So if you are an emotional authority and someone is asking you to make a decision, you can say to them, let me sleep on it. Or, you know what, I'm not entirely sure yet. Can I get back to you? So give yourself time to go through that emotional process. As you get more comfortable with your own emotional process and your own emotional wave and identifying where neutral lives for you, you'll have a better sense of the duration of time that you need in order to hit that yes or no. The second strongest authority in the human design system is the authority that identifies generators and manifesting generators, and that is the sacral authority. Now, here's the fun part. Generators and manifesting generators could actually have an emotional authority even though they have that defined sacral. So again, this is where knowing which one is the more powerful becomes really handy. So that sacral authority works in a uh-huh or an uh-uh or a meh. It also works in an expansive way or a contractive way. So instead of the emotional authority that's looking for that place of feeling neutral when they're making a decision, the sacral authority is looking for a yes or a no. It's looking for and needs a reaction. So the emotional authority doesn't actually want a reaction. It wants a decision based off of neutrality. And the sacral wants a reaction. It wants a strong yes or a strong no. Now, if the sacral reaction is a meh, sometimes that means you just don't have enough information yet. Sometimes it means someone else could make that decision for you and that would be okay. Sometimes it means that now is just not the time to make that decision. No matter what, totally fine. If you don't get that yes or that no, you can leave it up to chance, or you can just wait it out and find out later if there is a strong yes or a strong no. For sacral authorities, so for manifesting generators and generators, having open-ended questions becomes a little bit overwhelming because they're looking for a yes-no response. What you're looking for and the way to sort of train the people around you, or even to work with your own sacral authority, as I've discovered to do, is either have the people around you ask you yes-no questions or give you a multiple choice, would you like this, this, or this? Or you can ask yourself yes-no questions. So if somebody asks you a broad question, we're going to use what type of food do you want for dinner? Or what would you like for dinner as an example? What I will do is I'll take that internally and I'll say, do I want pizza? Yes or no? And I'll feel that reaction. Do I want a bowl? Yes or no? And I'll feel that reaction. Do I want Thai food? Yes or no? And I'll feel that reaction. So for that sacral response, it's really important to give yourself those yes-nos. You can also, this is one of my other tricks for the sacral response, and especially for bigger decisions. The sway test is a really great option to get tuned into your sacral authority if that's the primary authority that you have. So to test it out, you find your feet hips width apart, knees are soft, close your eyes, take a breath, and then start to say or think yes, 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 and then reset. And say or start to think no, 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 no. You'll notice that your body moves in one direction or another as you go through this. For me, my yeses are forwards, my nos are backwards. For some people, it might be right or left, or in a clockwise or counterclockwise direction. Whatever works best for you is your truth, and then you can test it out as you go about your day. The third strongest authority is also the quietest, most elusive authority. It is extremely in the moment, in the now. When spiritual teachers tell you to listen to that still small voice within you, that is that splenic authority, which resides in the spleen, which is the oldest center and has the most primal and primitive fears associated with it, which is not a bad thing at all. But this is the true, quiet, soft, elusive intuition. The splenic authority happens before your mind kicks in. It happens before thought happens. It is that moment of deep knowing, but it's fleeting. So for people who have a splenic authority, it's really important to not talk yourself out of that initial intuitive reaction. Start to practice on small simple things, to listen to that quiet splenic voice, that quiet intuitive voice, and see what happens when you start to pay attention to that without talking yourself out of it. The lesson for this authority is to listen to and to commit to what that intuitive knowing is. I don't know if I've talked about this clearly yet before, but the heart in human design is also called the ego, and it's not the ego is bad ego or the look at me ego. It is the willpower, the knowing, the sense of self, the being rooted and confident in who you are as you are. So there's two types of authorities that reside around the ego or the heart. There's the ego manifested and the ego projected. The ego manifested authority does best when they have a neutral human or space, and that can be on your own, it can be on your iNotes, it can be whatever works for you. But a neutral place that's not going to inject their own opinions, where you can talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and then you blurt out what is your truth. Someone once introduced me to the term a thinker-talker, and it wasn't used in this context, but as I think about that ego manifested authority, that's really what I think about, is someone who talks through their process, and in that processing, they come up with, they identify, and all of a sudden it blurts out their truth, and that's the decision. So having either a space where you can listen to yourself and say whatever is real for you, or having a coach or having a friend who isn't interjecting their views, but is able to identify when you've hit on something that is true for you and that is actually your truth, is really useful for the ego manifested, especially as you're getting used to using this authority. The ego projected authority, on the other hand, is all about asking, what's in it for me? Is this something that I want to do? What am I going to get out of it? Now, the reason that that's important for the energy system of the ego projected is that this usually happens in a projector energy type. So it's important to identify if you have the willpower, the commitment, the internal motivation to say yes to whatever it is that you are making a decision on. The heart is an energy center, and once that ego projected authority says yes to something, the heart is able to keep that energy going. So especially for those projectors who don't have a sacral energy center, this helps them to keep the energy moving. So it's really important for the ego projected, and it is not incorrect for the ego projected to be, I'm gonna say the word, selfish about saying yes to something. Because that's the whole point of human design, is that what works best for you is what's best for everyone around you. If you say yes to something when your ego projected authority is actually saying no to it, you're not going to show up in your fullest energy, and that's going to impact negatively the people around you. So it's not selfish for an ego projected authority to be selfish. And that's what's so amazing about human design, is that what works for you and your energy might have a negative connotation in societal norms, but for you and your energy, it's actually not that negative connotation. It is actually the best decision for everybody. I get really heated about that, apparently. The third to last one is the self-projected authority. And this authority comes from the G center, which in the chakra system is where the heart is, but in the human design system is where the G center is, which is the home of your soul. The self-projected authority is very similar to the ego manifested authority, where both authorities need to talk it out and need to hear what's happening in order to know their truth. Now, the difference is the ego manifested authority is going to blurt something out and blurt out their own truth, versus the self-projected authority needs to see their decision reflected back from others. What? So again, very similar to the ego manifested authority. It's best to have a neutral person who understands human design, or who understands how to be neutral and not give their opinions to you, but to be able to reflect back what it is that you're saying, so that you can hear your truth reflected back to you. You have this, if this is true for you, it's important that you really deeply listen to what it is that you're saying and the impact that is reflected back to you from those around you. Okay, the environmental authority. This doesn't come from within you. This comes from the environment that you are in, and is typical for someone who doesn't have a lot of definition in their chart, because they're open to the conditioning of the environment that they're in. The most important thing for the environmental authority is to be in spaces that feel good. This means this authority might go to a restaurant, walk in the door and be like, nope, this isn't for me. Or you might even go to that restaurant. The restaurant feels good, but you sit down at a table, but it's the wrong table. And you say, nope, this isn't for me. And you ask to change tables. It's also the person who could go to a hotel and might walk in the door and go to their room and go back down to the desk and say, I need to change rooms. And what's so important for this authority is to honor feeling good above everything else. And so it's really important to have that confidence, that internal knowing that if you feel good, everyone around you is going to feel good. This isn't about being selfish. This is about you holding the energy for the group. And you know what? Most likely, if you are a mental projector authority or an environment authority, somebody else in that group or in that dynamic is likely going to have the same thoughts. But as the environmental authority, it's so important that you honor that and speak up for what feels correct and changing that environment. And everyone else in the group is going to be like, you know what? There was just something about that didn't feel right. But you having that as your authority is going to be the thing that really hits and gives you the permission to make that change. We've talked about it before. The reflectors have a lunar authority. Everything about the reflector really revolves around the moon and the moon cycle. So for reflectors, initially there is that 28-day period. So again, just like the emotional authority, it's important for reflectors to take some time to make a decision, especially those big life decisions. But as a reflector gets clearer on the that they go through in that lunar month, they might not need the full 28 days to hit up their response. They might start to know where in the cycle they live or they are. And through that knowing, through that understanding of your own process, you'll get that awareness around, you know what, I need a whole month to make this decision, or I need multiple months to make this decision, or I can actually probably get back to you in like 3 days to make this decision. And again, it is that knowing that you need the time to go through trying on decisions from multiple different perspectives, because who you wake up to be one day is completely different from who you show up as when you're out in an environment with other people versus what you are doing in a month from now. So knowing that as a reflector, you do create this chameleon effect, it's important to give yourself the time to make your own decisions that really truly sit well with the deepest knowing of who you are. And I say the deepest knowing of who you are when really, when it comes to reflectors, you can be whatever you're around. So it is a who you are, and it's also a who you know yourself to be based on the people and the environment that you're in. And again, this is not a bad thing. This is your true gift. Those are the authorities. There are a lot of them. You might have many of them. I have a few. But my core one is that sacral. And so that's my primary authority. I also have a splenic authority. So I know that if I don't get that yes, no, or if I get that initial intuitive hit, I wait for the yes, no sacral to kick in. If you have an emotional authority, but you also have the sacral authority, it's the same thing. You might get that yes, no first, but then give yourself the time to go through that emotional experience and hit neutrality before you act on whatever that decision is. As you can see, there's a lot. These are the core foundations of trying on the human design experiment. What's your energy type? What's your strategy? What's your authority? The next video is going to be a little bit more of a how to take your authority into the real world. So we'll do some examples on making decisions based off of each authority and what that would actually look like for various different authorities to try on a decision. If you like this content, if you're excited for that next video, click on the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you know when that next video pops up. And my mission for sharing human design out there into the world is that I know there are a lot of people who are conditioned to try to be somebody that they're not. And when you're following what everyone else is telling you you're supposed to do and you're supposed to achieve, we lose out on who you are. So yes, we are all one, and right now I really want everyone to know that we are all connected and we are all one, and we all matter so deeply. And the reason that we all matter so deeply is that we are all so unique and we all bring our own experiences, perspectives, and our own energy to the environment, to the communal. And I want this human design series to give you permission to show up for yourself. And by showing up for who you are and your energy, you create a ripple to give permission to everyone around you to really honor who they are. Okay, enough of the serious talk. Next up, you are going to be getting a yoga video that'll come up on the week. I'm going away this week, so I hope hope to have a different backdrop. I'm gonna try and do a little bit of filming while we're away. And if you like this content, you know what to do. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.